Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So today I want to talk about a few miscellaneous things. The first is, if you buy a shopping center, it has restrictions. For example, either in leases or restrictive easements, REAs. Don't assume that there's nothing you can do about those. Always try, if you have a prospect that is not allowed, go ahead and try to work something out with the tenants that exclude it, or even the city. I've done it a few times. I had a situation where I bought a 2-acre piece of land. It was in an out parcel of a shopping center, a grocery anchored shopping center. Adjacent parcels on this was called a PUD. So we had Lowe's, the hardware store. I had Starbucks, Shell Oil, Applebee's, Bank of America, McDonald's, and I think that's it. But in all of their leases, it said no pharmacy. And I had Walgreens who wanted to be on this 2-acre site. So I started with the grocery store because it was in their main lease, no pharmacy. They were the ones that restricted it. But because they were the original tenant of this whole development, that exclusive list carried on and went into everyone else's leases. So I convinced the grocery store to exchange the release of the drugstore use with a payment. But then I had to go to those 9 other people and get them to release the restriction also. I was able to do it only Shell Oil and Starbucks, which Starbucks was an investor. It wasn't even Starbucks corporate. I had to give Shell, I think I paid them $33,000 or $37,000, and I think I paid the Starbucks investor owner like $17,000. So just about $50,000 for those 9 releases and approvals, which was a very good deal. So my point is, maybe you do end up having to abide by the restriction, but you should give it the old college try. I have a shopping center that has a ring road in front of it, like it's a ring road. So it's a road in front of my parking lot that was built to take pressure off of the main road that my shopping center fronts, which is University Drive. That has 75,000 cars. And when the property was developed, there was this side road that goes in front of my property. And it's really not used at all. So in 2008, when I bought the center, I went to the Department of Transportation, hired a transportation expert to go talk to the DOT, to see if I could buy that ring road and vacate it and or lease it so that I could add more parking. And they turned me down. At that time, they said that that land was in the plans for a future bus route. Well, it's now 2024, and I have rehired another transportation consultant, and we just had a call last week with like 9 people from the DOT, and they did not see a hardship, and they were not inclined to help me, even though the bus route is no longer in the planning. But I've been sharing it with some friends of mine, and I have a friend who has a contact that says he can help me with the DOT. So I'm still moving forward, because if I could somehow add 20 parking spaces or 30 parking spaces, if not more, in that area, I could probably lease to a few more restaurants, which in South Florida, restaurants are 30% or more over just pure retail. So I'm very anxious to do that. Right now, our city, the town that my property is in, has overbearing parking formulas for food and beverage. And so I'm also lobbying the city to reduce their food and beverage parking formulas, as I'm hearing around the country that other cities are dropping those parking formulas altogether. So the first miscellaneous point that I want to share with you all is, don't just assume that nothing can be changed. because it can be. The second thing is these elbow uses. I get a lot of calls about the elbow uses, and they really need to be destination uses. So if you buy a shopping center and you have a vacancy in the elbow, can you relocate like a physical therapist, a tutoring place, a daycare? Is there someone that does not have overwhelming high infrastructure that you can relocate rather cheaply into the elbow space? Because those are the types of tenants that need to be in that elbow space, opening up more impulse driven locations in your property so that you could put an ice cream or apparel store or things that are more impulse uses that would not be successful if they were in the elbow space. Also, elbow uses are, someone called me the other day and said, we were talking about his shopping center, and I asked what the rents were, and he said $24. And I said, which space is $24? And he said, they're all $24. I said, so the end cap is $24 and the elbow is $24? And he said, yes, isn't that what it should be? And I said, no. Actually, I price my spaces differently. If I had an elbow, I don't buy shopping centers with elbows. That's out of my buy box because of 90% of all of the vacancy in the country are in the elbow spaces. Why is that? So tenants really want signage and visibility. If I did have an elbow space, I would connect a sign band from the two spaces on either side of the elbow horizontally across so that elbow space could get more signage. But my elbow space might be $15 and my end cap might be $30. Larger spaces, obviously, if I had a 5,000 square foot space, maybe the rent is $20. And if I had a 1,200 square foot space, maybe my rent would be $25. And additionally, different uses. If there's an end cap with a drive-through, the drive-through is extremely valuable. Drive-throughs since COVID, definitely in the Southeast, the drive-through prices are up 30%. So if you have a drive-through, an end cap with a drive-through in the Southeast, in a market where there aren't 4 empty end caps with drive-throughs in a submarket that maybe you own a shopping center, you should be able to charge 20 to 30% higher, depending on how aggressive you might want to be. That's why it's so important that you know what your adjacent or nearby vacancies are and what the rents are going for. So, and then uses. I wouldn't do a CBD deal or a vape deal, but if I did, I would charge them $30 if I was charging a normal retailer like a bike store $20. So different uses can pay more rents. Bike stores can't pay a lot of rent. Furniture stores cannot pay a lot of rent. And sometimes you want those because they fill a lot of vacancy, large space vacancy. So the answer to the question when I was speaking to that gentleman is no. If you have an L-shaped shopping center that's 40,000 square feet, $24 should not be a one-size-fits-all rental rate. And then a couple more things. Someone else recently called me and asked me if they thought that they had a former Subway. And they said, should I vanilla shell it? Meaning, should I go in and, because Subway had kind of left it a mess. And he wanted to know if he should invest some money in cleaning the space up. Personally, for me, I would take 90 days, and whether I'm leasing it or a third-party person's leasing it, I would put on the flyer, former Subway. Everyone knows what a Subway looks like. And I would not spend money vanilla shelling it because let's say I lease it to Jason's Deli, I'm going to already have to give TI, and whatever I do, they're going to go in and pull out. So for 90 days, and let's say I show it 10 to 20 times. If by the 20th showing, and maybe I do it sooner, 15th showing, if everyone's complaining but by the way it looks and I can't get anyone to lease it because of its condition, then for sure I might go ahead and spend money and repair the drywall and paint and whatever. But I would try to not do that in the beginning. I would tell all of my prospects that, if you take it as is, it's, $15 a square foot, but I'm happy if you want to pay the rent at 20, I'll go in and fix all of these things. It's all in negotiations and a negotiation. And maybe maybe your deal is I want to get 24, so I want to make it looking pretty now. But who knows? You might have such an in-demand market that you can lease it in 2 weeks and not have to spend $1. So I definitely I would test it first before I spent any money. And you could, while you're waiting and while you're showing space or your third-party broker's showing space, you certainly can go get a contractor or a maintenance guy or a handyman to give you pricing. That doesn't take an hour, right? So you can find who would I call, get them there, get them to look at it. So that could take some time while you're hopefully showing space. Someone else asked me, they have a 60,000 square foot shopping center and they have 15 vacancies. And they're like 1,200 square feet to 2,000 square feet. And he said they're all in absolutely terrible condition, just hanging ceiling tiles, buckling floors, just really, really bad shape. And he asked if he should vanilla shell those spaces. So what I told him was that I would vanilla shell 2. I would go ahead and vanilla shell 1,200 and then 1,2,500. But I wouldn't do all 10 of them. So I would kind of create spec spaces and save money. I wouldn't do them all at once, because you might get someone that wants 8,000 square feet and then you just wasted that money. So, but I would do a couple spec spaces if they were in such bad condition. And the way he described them to me, it sounded like they were. I think that's it for today. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to give me a call, DM me, throw your question on a DM or an email or text. And if you like this podcast, please give it a rating. I think you can like it, recommend it, subscribe, and tell your friends. And if you guys are going to be at the Orlando ICSC, stop by my booth and say hi. Have a great day.